Well, greetings, Commanders. As you can already tell, we are somewhere pretty damn special today. We are in the bottom of the Mamba. Now, if you have looked at the Mamba in Pancake, you see that there's a whole area down here which we're now going to explore. And unlike every other video that you've seen on YouTube where they say, so stay tuned to the end, we'll do it then, I'm going to do it right now. You're welcome. So now obviously we are looking at my commander here and we are in Hollow Me. And what's funny about this is that I was originally wondering how on earth I was going to get down here, because up there you can see the second flight seat, and over here is the top, the deck, over the top of which would sit the commander chair. But of course, in Hollow Me, you get transported somewhere else, and you also get to see your commander, which is pretty rad. Down here, old Headless is having a seat. Headless has turned into a female, as you can see. The only problem down here, though, is that in Hollow Me, they create like a sort of weird fog around the outside, which is not actually present in the normal Pancake version, or indeed, if you reset your vision from up there and then jump down here. So that's what I'm going to have to attempt to do. Probably going to have to try and climb a stool or something. So bear with me while I try and get myself back down here, otherwise we may have to do it with the fog sort of effect turned on. But let's see what I can do. If I reset my vision at the roof, then maybe that's nearly good enough. Need to go a bit higher. Not quite. Let me try a stool over here. Right, I'm gonna climb up here, reset this as high as I can. Luckily I've got high ceilings over here, so let's see what happens. All right, that's gonna be as good as we're gonna get, I think. Right, so prepare for your immersion to be completely blown straight away, because I'm about to shove my head down into that section. Now, before I do that, you can see that this chair, similarly to the Imperial seats, actually is on a mount that moves backwards. So we'll just have a close look up at this at the moment. Seems to be on some pistons, maybe, that don't go too far in. But then the whole sort of board here that the seat rests on, regular seat with all the regular trimmings, would slide all the way backwards here, maybe another 60 centimeters, all the way to the back here, and then latch in with this kind of configuration there, and then there's maybe some, I don't know what those are, ports or something of some description. Yeah, anyway, you can work out what that is for yourself. So now, if we go to the edge here, it says warning, keep clear. Of course, we're not going to do that, we're going to leap down in there. Now this is my standing height, but it's actually wrong for the standing height of what I was when I was down there. So maybe down on one knee is closer, not quite exactly the right height, but closer. So let's start having a look around, shall we? So first of all, we have the ladder, and it's just a normal ladder, reasonably nice sort of polished metal materials and some low-res rivets, and the handles that come all the way down. So it's approximately a 6-foot ladder, roughly. Now over there in the corner, I'm going to try and get closer to that, but that is actually an EVA suit that's hanging up over there with the Zorgen-Peterson sign on the front. So that EVA suit hanging up there in the corner, kind of looking like a bat suit. I don't think I can get any closer in this view, but I'm trying. It's quite low res actually, but you can very clearly see that that's a cupboard with an EVA suit in it and some sort of an access panel. I'll try and get closer to that probably in the Hollow Me version of things. Then down the end there's some piping, really thick piping actually, probably the width of a body, the bottom ones. And the top is about the thickness of a thigh, and so is the bottom one. So they're actually quite thick, those pipes. And down there we have a cupboard that's approximately 3 feet or a meter wide and about a foot or 30 centimeters tall. Then moving into the corner, we have some greebling over there in the corner behind the net. Looks like a panel that's got some wires coming out of it connected to itself. Nothing terribly exciting over there. And then some more piping going through the underside of the panel. And you'll find that this video will probably be longer because there's actually so much detail in these later ships. Some netting there for cargo, which isn't attached to anything. And then we have an access door to something. Obviously, you've learnt by now that I will be shoving my head through that floor or through that door and seeing what's behind there at some point very soon. Then down here we have what looks like just a control button for the actual door itself. It says MMB1JC2, something like that, while the tracking craps itself. And a removable hatch on a removable hatch. Handy label. Good work. Then over here we have another ladder with what looks like grab handles made out of some sort of textured fabric material sewn through, which is a bit strange. And that heads up to the Copilot seat for multi-crew. Fairly plain base there. It just says Zorgen Peterson on the little label there. So let's stand up, take the opportunity to look at the underside of the second seat. So a couple of arrows that say go up, if you haven't worked that one out already. Some other strapping, which just looks like strapping to hold onto, which would make this climb fairly precarious, I would have said, but there's actually little divots there where you could put your hands behind, so you could probably just hold onto that without the straps. I'm not sure. It looks cool anyway. A couple of cables plugged in there, which seem to have writing on it that's too low res to see, and a single LED light kind of situation there, and a plug for something, which doesn't go anywhere, and a receptacle for something, which is nicely detailed with some sort of silver stitching or plastic or something in there. And over here we have a couple of, maybe they're supposed to be air vents, but they're really, really low texture, so you can't really tell. Speakers, air vents, something like that. And there's a couple of little grab handles up here. You can definitely reach them from here. Obviously I am about 8 feet off the ground at the moment, so I'm not just normal standing height, but you could definitely reach those as you were climbing up this ladder to get to the second seat. Albeit once you get there, you probably smack your head on the center console up there. So you'd probably have to climb over there and in and through and crawl and stand up. So that would be a bit arduous. All right, moving on. Here we have just a nice little drawing, a schematic, if you will, of the Mamba from above. And then we have a thing here that says add 12-pin mod unit. Okay. There's a little thing here that says foam seal. I'm sure you can read that for yourself. 102/333/107. That's just a little cupboard for a thing. Presumably it's foam sealed in there. Really big pipe that comes here down onto the ground. I'll probably get the best look of it here. It just goes into the ground. It doesn't have any labeling on it or anything, so just use your imagination as to what that actually is. Alright, here is a panel. It's very small writing, and I don't know if you can make it out on the recording, but I can't certainly read what any of that says. Down here it says, caution pressure seal on something or other, and then there is a fire extinguisher down there, which we'll get a better look at from another angle. I want to impale myself on the fireplace, so we'll get a bit closer to this bit. Seems to be a keypad panel to access a thing, with maybe 21 written on it in some funky font. A label behind it, which has too small writing to read, and a sign down the bottom there that says caution something. No, that's too low res to see as well. Maybe some sort of a receptacle or slot down there, and warning. So that's good. We're warned of something, we just can't tell what it is. Then there seem to be 4 canisters of a substance of some description. Maybe it's oxygen, maybe it's, I don't know. You can make up your own mind as to what that is. Then it says access lock release, and there is another sign there that says maybe ZP as in Zorgen Peterson Mamba. Could be. And some very, very small writing that you can't make out. Then over here in the overhead compartment we have a net that's holding in some sort of a tube. I'm going to stick my face into the tube. And of course it's hollow, but maybe a package that's being delivered or something. And another parcel, extremely low res parcel, but that's obviously being transported as well, and stick my head through that. Then over here we come to the other side, so we stand up here. There's another pipe here, about 8 inches across in diameter, so a fairly hefty pipe. And as you can see down here, there's also like a cupboard out through there. fairly far away actually, but it leads nowhere. It's just got a blank end at the end. That's where an end goes usually. And some more wiring coming down from the upstairs area. So I'll have a closer look at that when I get up there. A panel that seems like it would open. Maybe it's on a lock of some description, containing something. And another pipe. This one's a bit smaller, maybe 5 or 6 inches across, with more red and white stripes on it, and what appears to be another cargo net or cargo holder. This actually looks more like something that would fold down, maybe. Now it's attached to the wall. I don't know what that is. It's a thing. VR tether is a bit too short to get right into the corner there, but it says something. It looks like there's a picture of an old-fashioned crate, is it? Or, I don't know, I didn't play the original Elite Dangerous back in 1984, but some sort of a vectographic ship in the back there. You can tell me what it is down in the comments, because I certainly can't work it out. Some more wires and things hanging down from the back in a nice orange light. Fairly basic. And what just looks to be either a storage unit or something. Over here there's a little sign that says P0878-04 something 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 with an arrows going either way, so maybe indicating some sort of a panel. Now, we get to the exciting bit. If you weren't excited already, this is the bit that I was really interested in, and I'll probably have to reset my head-up display to get you in there. But you can see that there is a set of sliding doors down there, fairly short sliding doors actually, and then a storage bay underneath where the pilot sits. So that's where the commander sits right there. And you can see the storage bay is immediately underneath you when you're commanding the ship. A bit of a graphical glitch there where there should be a wall, but again, they're not expecting anyone to actually do what I'm doing. And then we get back to the storage bay. So let me reset myself and see if I can get a closer view inside that storage bay. I don't know how you would do this if you didn't have really high ceilings. Alright, so I have to crawl around on the floor like a loony to show you this storage bay, or cargo bay, so let's get in there. Alright, so that's the back of the sliding doors there that you can see from the other side. And now we're actually inside the cargo bay itself. Well, I'll have a little lie down. So, over here you can see some very low-res canisters and boxes that are supposed to indicate some cargo that is being transported at the time. And you have a fairly wide open sort of storage space down here, but no other doors or ways to get in. Over there seems to be some sort of a tank storage for something, 2 tanks that are clipped in from the top, and then some wires hanging down from the roof to, I guess, show some disrepair or middle of repair, or just, you know, the way that commanders jerry-rig things in space, I suppose. And then over here we have another little drawn out section for something, presumably a piece of cargo or equipment, but there's nothing there, it's just drawn out, and these are all relatively low textures apart from the Zorgen-Peterson logo there, which is actually medium texture, I would say. Certainly seems like there should be a door just there, but there isn't, so not sure exactly where this is supposed to lead to, but it looks like there should be a door. And other than that, the cargo bay is relatively empty, but this is kind of the only way that you'll get a view of all of the different sections of the cargo bay. It looks like something may be coming through the roof over there from above. And the underside of the roof is just black. Low res, textured black plastic. And it's right about there. It gives you the indication of how, how low I am to try and get into this section. Right, that was fun. Alright, so now we can probably start the tour of the actual cabin itself. Now again, because this is a new ship, there's actually a lot more to it than the old ships. So I'll have to try and get over there somehow a bit more closely, but you can see here a bit more of a running graphical output of a thing that indicates stuff. Then we have this one down here, sensor readouts, velocity readout, into something that wants you to scroll across. Results last 72 hours, and something is paused. So it seems to be irradiance that we have a readout of over the top there, because that matches the graph down here. There's also pressure, fuel flow, and external temperature. So that's reasonably interesting and a nice readout to get rather than the low-res orange blobs that you'll see in some of the other ships. Here we have, it says ZP Rep, not sure what that means, and a panel with some probably speakers in it by the looks of things, and the panel is about 1.5 feet long, about 6 inches wide, just to give you an idea. And the screen output here looks like maybe a full-size iPad, about 60% of the screen and the rest of it down the bottom chopped off. Here we have what looks like a slot. It actually says auxiliary port, so nice to see you can still play MP3s in space. And over here we have some sort of a disc or something that's been inserted. I'm not sure if you can read that. What is that? 0101 Mamba frame, mainframe 01. Is that what that says? I have my eyes about 1 inch from it, so I can't really see. And then what looks like some more slots for cards or something. But that certainly seems to be a disc or a module or a cartridge or something that's been inserted into the dash. Let's see if it actually continues or if it's just the end. No, it just sort of stops there. And then we have this section of the rear side of the paneling, which again, really nice materials. It's made of sort of, I'd say, sort of brushed aluminium, titanium kind of thing there. Some shiny black metal, gunmetal sort of metal going all the way around, and then sort of plastic either side. So again, just like the Imperial ships, some nice material choices. Over here we have some sort of a vent or a hatch. It says lock that way, release that way. Okay, whatever it is. Some storage for something. And oh, there actually is a compartment in here. Well, there you go. So it's a very small sort of compartment, probably big enough for a pilot's wallet or something, but certainly something that you can lock and release. Small little panel there with nothing much going on. Maybe an air vent in the back here and some wiring going in underneath the dash and then up through here, which will follow along and then just ends. What am I hitting now? This ship is huge, is the thing that I will tell you, because I'm running around my room and I'm smacking into everything. Here we have an elastic guarded, belted sort of area. If I stick my head in there, it looks like there's maybe a parcel or a thermos there, a Zorgen-Peterson cup, which is empty and has no bottom, and what looks like some duct tape, because every commander needs duct tape. A removable hatch with Zorgen-Peterson written on it. Nothing behind it. And then we have a vent down the back here for a bit of cooling, and you can see it actually has a small interior. If I stick my face into it, there we go. This is as weird for me as it is for you, I'm sure. Looking inside vents. And then a couple of lights, and a couple of lights, and that's sort of the end part of that console. The interesting part here is that the hologram emitter is just blank, and it just has Zorgen-Peterson written on it, and it's seemingly shining the hologram up through itself. One thing I forgot to mention here, there's another little container or speaker mount or something here, which just goes to the outside. Also have immersion brakes here, so you'll just have to deal with it, I'm sorry. Now here it actually says arc anti-reflect on the windscreen. So seemingly there's details on the actual canopy windscreen itself. And it's only about a finger's width running all the way around the actual glass, but that gives you some perspective as well. Here's another panel that says JC2 with what looks like, again, some slots for SD cards or something. I don't know, are SD cards still popular in space? I mean, obviously, but weird. And a module clasp of some description, whether that's the canopy or something else. It's not really super clear. And a very small caution sticker that you absolutely cannot read. And that's about the end of it. Again, some really nice shiny materials. This feels like it would be nice and cool and black and sleek sort of material. Probably like the outside of a car, I would say, for this little section here. And then it transitions back over to sort of plastic. What am I hitting here? Nothing. There's actually something written on the window. Canopy emergency breaker hatch located under this label. Signal the ground crew in case of emergency. Interesting. Here in the corner we have some sort of other panel. It just says 01 and a screen. Seems like that could be maybe an external camera or something that the commander could use to orientate themselves. And some lighting or something. And down behind this little panel section, we have lots of wiring running from, looks like from the cargo bay underneath, all along the wall, held in with clamps and running over to the front. And down here, some small wires running in and out of the dash as before. Some maybe air vents or something. They seem to go into the actual space itself. All right, and so we do have a small panel here at the front that says some stuff. Zorgen Peterson, Masterface CMD, maybe? It's a bit strange, anyway. And some venting and a small hole that you can actually see through, tiny bit. Add 12-pin mod unit again, a smaller version of the same thing that was down in the bottom there. And a Mamba symbol with a nice Mamba snake. Ventilation duct, well there you go, that answers the question about whether it was ventilation or what it was. So yes, that is a ventilation duct, and it just sort of goes around the corner and down a teeny bit before it stops. Over here we have some more wires coming out, nuts and bolts, a little bit of a grab handle there maybe to, maybe it looks like you can actually open this entire panel up. That'd be interesting. And the old projector Lazy Susan thing is much bigger in this one. It's probably a good 2 feet across, maybe even a little bit more than 2 feet actually. Yeah, it would be maybe 80 centimeters, so 2.5 feet across. It's starting to get fairly sizable. So down here, to orientate yourself, I'm actually under the console here at the front. That gives you the information. You can see the hologram shooting there through the console. So the back of the console is fairly boring and low res, as you would expect. Having said that, there is a hatch here that you could potentially store something into or access something for maintenance. But that's not really the interesting bit. So let's have a look at the interesting parts down here. So first, there's another thing that says warning, foam seal with the same numbers as down in the cargo bay, and pressure seal. The wires coming down into blackness. And then a sign that says deck crew only, which is interesting. And before I move on, let's stick my head down here. And it just shows you some very low res, in fact, square piping near the commander's chair underneath the vents here. So back to this section again. So the wires run along, and here we have our first look on this channel, but there are many more instances of it, of actual sort of glass or rigid plastic rendered within the cockpit itself. So it seems like it's some sort of a mechanism that comes in and out. The width of this is about a motorcycle helmet, and the height of it is about a motorcycle helmet again. So that gives you the indication of how big that little thing is. And inside the glass we have some sort of a mechanism, locking mechanism device, some sort of a situation that isn't abundantly clear, but it does seem it would slide forward from this section here to back where it is there. What its purpose is another question entirely. Some more vents in the bottom there. They lead to nothing, just a very small area underneath. Then we have this little bizarre setup contraption thing that does seemingly nothing, but it's there, so perhaps just some greebling. And then at the front here we have just Zorgen Peterson written on the front aspect of the canopy. Now if I stand up here, lots of holes through the ship, which obviously doesn't need to be rendered, but it gives you an idea of how the cockpit is situated. And down there it shows you the entry ramp / front landing gear. Now in terms of height from where I am now to the ground, I'd say it's a good 2.5 to maybe 3 stories in height. So it's actually very, very high up. And I'll try and relate that from a ground level view as well. I may as well talk about the sides and fronts of the ship while I'm here. Now obviously it'd be easy for me to just say they are epically long, which they are, but I'll try and relate it to something in the real world. Now because this ship is now vastly bigger than the small ships, everything is obviously a much larger scale. So it's going to be a bit harder to relate the size of this thing, especially because it tapers, so it gives you a bit of depth perception weirdness. So the nearest that I can say probably is from where the red stops, just there, to the tip of that corner is about the length of an average bus, and I mean a proper 72-seater sort of regular city bus. So it's actually a very long thing. In terms of the height, it probably starts off the height of a city bus, and by the time you get to the end, I would say the very tip there, the flat part of the tip, is about that big from the looks of things, so still extremely substantial. And from this vantage point, you can't see much more of the ship. I mean, you can see a tiny bit of it, other than to say it goes for a very long distance, easily longer than a suburban house. And down here we have another label which is in microscopic writing. I can make out Zorgen-Peterson Mamba S, Class M, and refurb, yes or no. So some sort of manufacturer sticker maybe, or a sticker to indicate a second-hand ship or something. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I've got my eyes as close to it as is humanly possible so that maybe on the screen you can see something. Certainly in VR I can see pretty much nothing. Down the corner here we have another one of those contraptions, so it seems like something slides forward or backwards from that location based on this rail here and that rail over there. But what that is and how it works beats me. Over here in the corner we have some sort of a thing that says Emotion? I don't know. Something. It's a thing that's clearly bolted into the ground as an adjunct to the ship, and there's some cabling that goes over there. Another sign that says deck crew only, and then in the center we have a removable hatch with a caution on it. This here little panel is the same panel that we saw in the back of the cabin on the wall as a bit of greebling. It just says removable hatch. Ugh. Down here it says maintenance record, bridge and bridge 2, and there's canopy, terminals again, C something, vento something, and a squiggle for a signature, and what looks to be a date that I can't read, but perplexingly seems to start with a 2. But to give you some context of where we are, this removable hatch leads down into the cargo section underneath. Right, coming around this side, we have another panel, another screen here that says 0.02, just like the one that says 0.01 over there. Again, don't know what that means. Maybe it's a status checker of some description. A sign here that says SS Zorgon. So that's interesting. And then over here, more caution signs, and something else on the dash that says CAPI, maybe capacity. Dest Arc 26/SP rebuild 0000 with a very long serial number there. And then what's interesting is that there actually isn't a physical keyboard in this ship at all, but there is this thing, which certainly seems like it should be a keyboard, and in fact it says keyboard access all along it, and it says press down to flip interface. But if you stick your face in it, there's no keyboard inside and no keyboard visible underneath. So it seems to just be hidden away but accessible through there. Alright, now behind where the keyboard access is, it says MMB1JC2, presumably the part number for that section. There's another belted off little area with some storage behind, and we can see some stuff in here. What on earth is it? I don't know what that is, but it looks a bit like a taser maybe, which would be a bit strange. It doesn't go through anywhere, but it's got 2 prongs and some sort of a button. So it's a bit strange. Some maybe swipe cards or access cards or something of that sort of description, and what appears to be either a drink or some sort of coolant or something. It certainly has the Zorgen-Peterson logo on it, but it's not even a full bottle, it just sort of ends there. Then the remainder of the console, we have another Zorgen-Peterson sign, again some nice combination of materials, CLY written there for some unknown reason, and yet another of these little things, hard drives or something. This one equally says Mamba mainframe 02 maybe. This one's actually harder to read than the one on the other side, so that's kind of interesting as well. Then over here we have another ventilation duct. That's what you can read. There seems to be maybe text there on the outside as well, but that is way too low a texture to actually be able to make out. And over here we have a really cool panel. I'm standing up just about on the ground itself, and this panel is about that wide, roughly, and about that high, roughly. So maybe a 28-inch monitor with the bottom bit cut off. And it says avionics system interface, onboard network, frame shift diagnostics, and hardpoint management. There's a bunch of stuff down there. It says active, that is too small for me to read. And then there is it's a heat map, okay. So it's a heat map of the ship. Then there is another one of these panels which was near the door down the bottom. And again, it's way too small to actually be able to make out what it says. And cooling solution, water temperature, PCU integrity, shield, Mark 1 recharge, atmospheric protocol and utility functions. And here it's got stuff about signal source intensity and a bunch of names of things that you can read yourself. And then over here there is another sort of readout, which from a distance I originally actually thought this was an anaconda, and I was thinking, why would there be a picture of an anaconda on the Mamba? But now I see that it is actually the pilot section, the commander section down the bottom, even with his head drawn there, and the seat behind the pilot there with the multi-crew person's head drawn there, and some arrows showing a thing. Up the top there it just says Zorg and Peterson Mamba, and some other things that are too small to read. But a really cool looking panel nonetheless, and not one that you can really get near or behind unless you are actually in VR. And I'm imagining this would be impossible to read unless you do exactly what I'm doing and hurt your eyes by getting really close. And there is a thing there that you may be able to read in the recording, but I can't actually make it out in VR. So yeah, tell me what that says down in the comments. I can't make it out. Right, and here we have yet another system heads-up display. Now this one is a bit strange because it looks a bit like an iPad or apps really on here. And there is, interesting, there is a speaker configuration image there. So it shows you where the speakers are, so many of which we have seen as we were going through, one of which seems to be inactive or somehow deactivated, but not on the picture itself. So you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 speaker surround sound system in the Mamba, which is what you need when you're shooting down bad guys. And there's clearly the name of a song that is being played. I'm not sure if you can make out what that says, but I can't. And the play, forward, backwards buttons and volume control, which is amusing. And so then there's system information, recent transactions, saved coordinates, and installed apps. It'll be really fascinating once we get spacelegs whether we're actually able to interact with these panels in some sort of a weird way, or some sort of real way, really, or whether they're just for decoration. And there's that panel again that we have seen before with the writing, and some more storage panels that says push to open. Is there an interior? Nope. And another one says push to open and a removable hatch, and another one of those stickers down here. None have interiors. Then there is a ventilation duct. There's temperature control back and front. We're getting there. Right. There is another one of those fire extinguishers, which is extremely low res. Looks like TBD1ARC something or other. So yeah, very low res, but very clearly a fire extinguisher that's down here in the storage bay. The view down onto the Commander shows you a few more little bits and bobs. So another one of those refurb stickers down here, and 4x flexo clasp canopy glass with an arrow, and some more storage stuff up here, or cupboards and cabinets and stuff all over the place. And up there seem to be some vents, probably from those heating controls that we saw before, and some sort of a thing, which again looks like it has a cartridge plugged into it. Yeah, it certainly does look like it's some sort of a cartridge. It says that decked ARC something or other on it, like we've seen before. So yeah, not sure what that is, but it does look like there's something plugged in up there for sure. Very odd. And some more extra greebling there on the front. But again, that's stuff that you'd never expect to see because you're sitting down there. Alright, so here we have the second pilot seat, and the first view that we get of the back of the generic chair that the commanders sit on. So So it seems to be some sort of plugs here, maybe for the life support or EVA suits. I'm guessing they have receptacles in the rear. A very small and kind of uncomfortable looking headrest, to be perfectly honest with you. And the material here looks like some sort of very faux leather, but thin in terms of padding. I think the padding it shows here on the side, about that thickness there on the end, which is only about an inch, I think that is seemingly what the padding is at the back. So that probably would not be extremely comfortable for the hundreds and thousands of hours that a commander might sit in this chair for. And there is also no lumbar support to speak of whatsoever. Now the rest of this chair I've explored in some detail in the Sidewinder video, so if you want to have a look at that, feel free, because this video is already way too long, but I will have a look at the joystick, so you can see the layout of the buttons there on top of the joystick, and why I chose the joystick that I did, the HOTAS that I did for my setup. So click the link up the top there if you want to see a video on that. Otherwise, we can sort of see the few little switches and buttons that are on the edge there, and some controls. And then on the throttle side, there's obviously this hand plate. But again, as you'll see in the Sidewinder video, if you watch that one, the commander's hands are really, really tiny. And this really does look like you could be, for a child's hand, it's the size of a child's hand. And there's the look at the throttle with the various different buttons on all of the sides. And some of the things that says down there, mode optimization maybe, and set mode. There's a bit of a closer look at the bottom of the chair with the end of the padding there and where the feet go. So this is roughly the view if I stand on tippy toes from the secondary pilot's chair, looking out the front, so you can barely see the top of the commander's chair, but the console in front looks fairly similar to the one down the bottom. From here there are these two grab handles on the side, one there and one, if I reach, I can't even touch them, probably fingertips to fingertips, that's about how far away those are. And obviously you have a good view down into the small area down there, including the cargo bay. So that's obviously why they modeled it, because from here you could definitely see down into it, and if there was nothing there it would look very suspicious. Up here the console is much more plain than it was down there, with some openable cabinets. This one's about 1.5 feet by 8 inches, and some more wiring that goes somewhere, disappears there, and more cabling and stuff sort of exposed, which seems to be the feature of the ships these days. And yet a different panel layout. This one seems to show part of a galaxy map and the member and some sections of the member, or maybe a vector diagram of the interior, which is quite interesting. Thing down here with some buttons and slots down there, and underneath here is fairly plain. But there is some text, which is interesting, and it's unfortunately too low res to read, but it seems to be bullet points describing something or other. Over on the other side of the panel, we have a similar reflection with the cable here, and yet another panel, and yet another different panel. This one is talking about the small hardpoint, point 2. Another one of these button configurations, and then a few steps down to the rear door. As you can see through this section, which looks like these two panels move, but then there's actually nothing underneath. Alright, now I'm going to shake things up a little bit, and I'm actually going to break your immersion first through this door up here. And the door is about nearly 6 foot tall, but not quite. Fairly plain, and it just says access. Alright, shall we shove our head through it? Let's see what happens. Alright, so there you see your first look at a size 4 large hardpoint, and you can see that it is gigantic. Ow. It's bigger than the cargo bay below, really, and so that gives you some indication of its size. Absolutely huge. And the member, of course, has 2 large hardpoints as well, and there's your first look at a large hardpoint. And standing up here, you can sort of see the top of the hatch and the backs of the engines, which do seem like they're a good 50 meters away, maybe, and then maybe another 100 meters long. So it is a really, really huge ship from even this perspective. Now there is still one section that we couldn't get into, or one door we couldn't stick our head through, which is that one there. So I've had to come back down through the HoloMe and have a look at it that way. Now while I'm here, I'll give you a size comparison of the Commander. So I'm 6 foot tall, and the Commander is about my height, roughly. The proportions for the rest of the Commander are great, but those hands are teeny weeny. Alright, so, excuse me Commander, I'll just squeeze past you there. So then we have this access door here, which I'm now going to step through, and we'll see what's on the other side of this one. It's a box. Well, I did not expect that, to be honest with you. I expected to be able to see something on the interior of the ship underneath, but no, it's just a box. Well, if we look past the box, there's the end of some piping that comes out from the bottom, next to the EVA suit. Some piping that comes in here and goes there and stops, and then there's just this box. Why is there a box? Ow! Alright, let's go the other way. Let's put my head through next to the ladder. There we are. So that's the interior of the box there behind the door. So possibly there'll be an animation where you come in through and get into that box and then go out through the door itself. Well, the front landing gear, let's have a look at that while we're here as well, is down there. So this one actually has stairs in it, and you can probably actually count the stairs. There is probably 20 stairs there, and those struts are really hefty. They're probably, those things that come out sideways, they're probably a good 2 feet wide, or 2 feet in diameter. So it's much like a tank, really, this front. And that landing pad down there, where you would step up onto, is about 1 meter by 1 meter. But then you'd have to come in underneath where I am now and maybe climb up using another ladder and get into the box that's behind me. I don't know how you would do it. And one last thing I wanted to do is to have a closer look at this EVA suit as promised. So there is a very low grade button, seems to be the way to access the suit itself. And if we stick our face in here, yeah, it's a very, very low res, doesn't even have a back, a very low res rendition of the flight suit that you wear in game. And down there you can see it says Suit 02. I'm not sure where Suit 01 is. What do you think, HoloMe? Should we go out and show them this thing flying around? I think so. Alright, so while we're down here, we are going to launch ourselves out of here and giving you a fairly unique, I think, perspective of what it's like to launch a ship while you're actually in HoloMe, in VR, standing next to the Commander down in the bottom decks. So from here, I'd say the height of the actual ship is pretty proper, and it's not quite a full 6 foot clearance until this roof line here, which is effectively the floor above. If I tried to walk underneath it at 6 feet, I would dunk my head. So it sort of comes up to about there, and I am pretty much standing on the ground. So it's fairly accurately modeled to slightly less than 6 foot. I have to zoom out of here a little bit because the one last thing I want to show you is the size of these hardpoints, which is absolutely insane. So we're here again with the Copilot right at the back here, and you should be able to see the entire thing deploy if I get close enough out and stand on tippy toes. Now there's actually many hard points you can see from there. There's the larges over there, the 2 smalls at the front there, and the size 4 huge at the back. Now let's deploy this thing and you'll see how ridiculously huge it actually is. That is absolutely intense. Now in terms of the size of the barrel itself, I'd say the barrel, the actual bit where the shell comes out, is about that big, and the whole size of the circular outside is about that big. I can't really tell from here the length, but you can see if I move from one side of the cockpit to the other, maybe that gives you some perspective about how large this thing actually is. In terms of the large hard points over there, we are getting absolutely intense in terms of size. So that thing over there is about the length of a limousine, which is again the standard unit of Elite Dangerous measurement for me apparently. About the length of a limousine, maybe even a little bit longer. It is gigantic, and then the small one you can see right over there in the front, near the front of the tip, very far away. Over here we have a multi-cannon, if we just rotate around so you can see the light. Again, that thing is, well, it's probably bigger than a limousine, I would say. About the same length, maybe, as the other one. Indeed, but bigger. Shall we fire the cannon? Oh my God. Right, we can see how far it retracts. Let me just head over here as far as I can. So I'm out on the wing. You can see this thing firing. Yeah, that's a huge amount of recoil as it fires, and it looks like it actually sends a bunch of smoke out the back that you can definitely see in this configuration. So, right, so now if we spin up that multi-cannon over there, you can see that banging away, huge. That just the spinning aspect actually looks probably more like a turbine spinning up, like you would imagine in a hydroelectric plant or something similar to that. It is ginormous, the actual housing, not to mention the barrels. They probably look like they're about 3 meters long each, and probably the same thickness of the small one that you saw previously. That cannon up there is just stupendous, though, absolutely stupendous. Oops, no power to weapons, that doesn't help. And then the laser over here. So there's your burst laser firing away. Interestingly, this one, even though it's a large hardpoint, actually doesn't have recoil. Whoop, tracking. Doesn't actually seem to have recoil compared to the small hardpoint, which did. So that is a bit strange. I was trying to see if I could actually sit on the cannon, but I can't quite sit on it. But, well, yes, it is gigantic. I mean, here is the very end of my room, and I'm about above where that central point is. If I walk all the way to the other end, without smashing into something, I've only gotten to where that scratch is on the center. So that gives you an idea of what 3.5 meters looks like, and then how large that thing actually is. And if I was to lie on the ground, maybe that would be about 6 feet off the deck. Yeah, roughly is what it would look like if you're actually standing on the cannon itself. And you can see that it is stupidly huge. And if you fire it, it recoils fairly far back into itself and spews out a bunch of smoke at the back. And interestingly, that section there actually spins after you fired the weapon. I'm not sure if you have seen that in Pancake, but it actually does a little spin there once you fire it, so that's a bit extra little animation. Whew. Well, that was a very long video. Thanks for sticking with me for as long as you have. Please do like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things that you would normally do. Tell your grandma, tell your cat, show it to your postman. And Commander Headless and I will see you in the next one. Fly safe, Commanders.